welcome to How to Spark Success, which is the podcast show where I have conversations with smart and savvy business owners, thought leaders, and people doing really interesting stuff around the globe. So I'm your host, Liz Hamlet, and I'm a business mentor and success coach, and I'm also founder of Spark Succeed. So today I've got a really interesting guest for you. My guest today has developed the Emotional Assertiveness Model, which is all around sort of accelerating development of the coach and client relationship. And it's also really key to sort of gaining more insights and understanding of why we experience emotions and how those can, if they're expressed in a positive way, an authentic way, how those can benefit teams and groups. So I'd love to welcome my guest today, which is John Parr. How are you, John?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm pleased to be here with you.
It's fantastic to have you, because I know we had a chat a few weeks ago and you were telling me all about your research and how you came to develop the model and the work that you're doing with coaches and sort of companies and teams around the world. So do you want to tell us a bit about what you do and about the model?
Well, these days what I'm doing is training trainers and coaches and certifying them in the use of my material, and indeed other materials that I have from colleagues on communication skills and so on. So my background is that first profession, I was an electronics engineer in the Royal Navy, and took a huge change in 1970 and decided I worked with people. So I ran a drug rehab center, a residential treatment center, 3 years, went to university, studied psychology, and that slowly, over various twists and turns in my career, brought me to where I am today.
And, you know, the work that you did, because obviously that's quite a big shift. And what I'm finding with a lot of my podcast guests is, you know, their careers are very non-linear. They've sort of moved from one thing to, you know, perhaps a totally different field, which, you know, they bring with them all the skills and experience from the previous employment into what they're doing today. So what got you so interested in working with people?
Well, I think it was a huge leap, because I went into electronic engineering in the Royal Navy because I didn't know what the heck else I wanted to do. I struggled at school. I'm dyslexic. Although I passed all of my school leaving exams, I didn't want to go on and do higher education. And I knew that I was good at engineering. So I took an engineering career. And I was good at it, and I knew that I wasn't being fulfilled doing that. And I got more and more interested in people and how they work. I had some friends who had begun to use substances, and I was concerned about them, and I did some reading about it, which put me in touch with a drug rehab center. And then they asked me to work with them. So it was like an opportunity was presented, and I took it. And that's all of my career changes have been that way. Something has come along and I've seen it and grabbed it.
Amazing. And, you know, I've had a bit of a read up on your model, but do you want to tell the audience a bit more about emotional assertiveness and your model and how you're using that with your clients and companies?
Yep, sure. It grew out of the fact that I was a psychotherapist, a transactional analyst psychotherapist. And I was working with people who I saw as having two broad categories: people who defended themselves when in distress by getting into their heads, thinking and not being emotional at all, or people who got overwhelmed with their emotions and couldn't think clearly. And I realized that it was necessary to help people to combine their capacity for thinking and feeling their emotions in order to help them to move forward and problem solve. So around the 90s, I began to read the stuff like Goleman and various others on emotional intelligence. And I realized that they were all saying how important it was to be emotionally intelligent, but none of them said how to be. And I saw there being a need for that. And I was already now working with people, facilitating people being emotionally intelligent. So I decided to write a master's thesis on applied emotional intelligence. And I submitted that in early noughties. And then people began to ask me to teach it. Again, it was an opportunity presented itself. I didn't think, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and teach. People said, well, will you run a seminar? So I did. They loved it. And it grew in that way. And then slowly I began to put it together, not only for helping people in therapy and coaching, but for helping people to generally have better relationships, like team building, leadership, and those kind of areas, and flexing it to fit into those frames of reference. And that's what I'm doing now.
And you're sort of working with, is it predominantly coaches or is it management? Who's your sort of key clients that you're training in the use of this model?
These days, I'm training consultants who are themselves trainers and are looking to go into organizations and deliver seminars on the topic of emotional intelligence, but with a slant on team building, customer relations, management, and so on. And also coaches who are already trained as coaches, who are looking for some new techniques in how to get past the blocks. Sometimes in coaching, we work with people and get to a place where it seems like there's a stuck place. And very often, the key to unlock that door is in the emotions. And so I'm teaching coaches how to use that as a tool to help them get past blockages.
Brilliant. And, you talked in your career that there's, often these sort of career developments have come up out of an opportunity that you hadn't even expected, a welcome opportunity that you hadn't even expected. But what would you say has been the biggest factor in your success in your career?
I think flexibility and resilience. I am fortunate in that my family are survivors. My grandfather, for example, was wounded and left for dead in no man's land in the First World War. Spent 3 days in a shell hole up to his waist in water. Was eventually rescued, recovered, and went back into the field again, and later became a stretcher bearer, survived the Spanish flu. It's like there is something in our genes that helps us to be resilient and survive. Yeah. I myself have had 3 near-death experiences when the hospital have told my family, you better come and see him, he's dying. And I stubbornly said, well, I'm not dead yet, following Monty Python's model. And here I still am. And so I think sometimes we're just lucky. And in my genes is resilience and a stubborn refusal to give in.
Yeah.
And a willingness to take opportunities when they come along. For me, the times when I've wanted something and paused and regretted it are very few, but they're burnt deep in my memory. So every time now I want to move forward, I really don't hesitate. I don't waste a whole lot of time planning it. I just dive in and figure out how to swim later.
That sounds very familiar, because that's exactly what I'm like in terms of, if I decide I'm going to do something, I am just all in straight away. And I don't feel like that approach has ever sort of, not served me well, in that, I will make calculated, a move towards that. But, like you say, often these opportunities come up for a limited time. Yeah. It's going to be a one-off opportunity, and sort of making the most of that. And I think, exactly what you said about, I think, yes, there is an element of luck, because these things coming up, but I think also sort of the resilience and sort of the ability to just jump in with both feet into the opportunities is, you know, really positive attribute, and it's obviously served you well because you know what you're doing now.
I have one very strong memory that stimulates me to continue being that way. I love antiquity, and I collect things like Stone Age implements and Roman pottery and Roman coins. And one day I found on a stall a Stone Age hand axe, and I picked it up and it fitted my hand perfectly. And I had this overwhelming sense that whoever made it had exactly the same size hand as me. And I asked about the price, and the guy told me, and it was very expensive. And I heard myself say, "You can't justify that." And I put it down and I walked away. And for about an hour, I thought about this axe. No, I want it. I'm going to have it. And I went back and it was gone.
Oh.
And from then on, I said, never again am I going to walk away saying I can't justify it. Who have I got to justify it to? No one. Just do it. So that's what I'm up to now.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's one of the things that I talk a lot to clients about, in, you know, particularly people that are looking to, you know, maybe take a bold step into something different, you know, whether that's starting up a new business or moving careers, in that, you know, often the fear of doing that is much worse than actually taking that step and sort of dealing with what will come up, you know, once you do. So I think, you know, your advice of just, you know, just going for it and not, you know, not to regret these opportunities that perhaps have passed you by, I think is really powerful.
It's a standard human fear, the fear of the unknown. In Ephesus, it's interesting because the picture behind me is of Ephesus. In Ephesus, they had a temple to every god, and they had one temple to the unknown god. So you could see they were afraid that even though they thought of all the gods, they may just have missed one. So they have a temple to the unknown God. And I think, you know, how human is that we're so afraid of what we don't know, and how much that prevents us, or we use it to prevent ourselves from doing things. There's nothing scary in the unknown. It's just that we have to learn something.
Yeah.
Learning is fun.
That danger of the what, you know, the what if thinking, you know, if I do this, what if this happens? What if this happened? You know, I remember once, you know, when I was, you know, a lot younger, sort of just generally being really nervous about a situation. And I remember it was my mum actually that said, you know, oh, what if a giant ant falls out of the sky? She's like, you can't just, you know, like plan for every eventuality and worry about every eventuality. Sometimes you just have to go, and you know, often the things that come up, you know, are fine and you can deal with them, and you know, nothing to be worried about.
Right on. Yeah.
I love that temple to the unknown gods. I think there would be a lot of people at the moment, you know, visiting that temple.
Yes. Well, we are as a species, we are creatures of habit, and unfortunately that's what provides the box that keeps us stuck from exploring outside of the box. So sometimes we just have to give up the habits and try and do something that we've never done before.
So interesting talking about habits, because the question I'm going to ask you now is actually about, you know, what are your success habits on a daily basis, weekly basis, that sort of help you in your, you know, day-to-day work?
Well, you know, I wouldn't say I was a creature of habit. So I don't have rituals and habits that I have to do. What I do is I work from home. So every morning I get out of bed, I do my ablutions, I go to my office, I check my emails, and I answer all of them before I start anything. So I've cleared my in tray of emails. I have breakfast, I come back up, and I carry on then working, either creating something, writing. Like today, I've just written a piece on COVID and mental health of people suffering from mental health disorders as a result of the lockdown, which I'm going to post on LinkedIn this afternoon. My habit, if I've got anything, is not wasting time. It seems to me that it's a precious commodity. As I get older, I become more aware of how precious it is. I'm 76 and the clock is still ticking, and I still got lots of things I want to do. So I'm just chugging on, and I think that's, if I have one habit, it's chugging on, not giving up because it looks difficult.
Yeah, and I think, that habit of sort of something that works for you, getting your emails done and out of the way, because often that can be left, and you might be missing potentially new opportunities or new contracts or different things by sort of maybe leaving that to a different part of the day.
Yeah.
But allowing time for the sort of more mundane tasks like the emails, and also sort of creative time that when that works for you. Obviously for you that works maybe later in the morning. For someone else that might be sort of late at night, people that work quite in different cadences of their body.
Yeah.
So that's sort of really interesting. So if you could sort of go back and start all over again, what do you think you would do differently?
I think probably what I would do differently is I might have stayed on and done my A-levels and gone to university. I left school in rebellion because of having had years of punishment because I was dyslexic. And when I went to school, that was called stupid.
Yeah.
Having rebelled when offered the opportunity to do further education, that's the bit I think that's the only decision that I regret. And having said that, I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't have taken that step. So who knows? We do what we do and we just move on. And nothing is forever. It's like a decision is a decision for now, but I can change my mind this afternoon. We're not stuck with things. We can move on and change.
Yeah, and the fact, actually, if you had have gone on and done your A-levels and gone to uni, you might not have been so dedicated. You might have studied something totally different and ended up in a totally, different direction in your career and in your life. And actually the fact that you started a career in one thing in the engineering, and then you got really interested in something else, and then that's when you sort of decided you wanted to go back and study. I think that meant that you were probably mentally more dedicated than you would have been at 18, 19.
Yeah, I just didn't do things in sequence. A bit like Eric Morecambe, who said, I'm playing all the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order. Do you remember the Eric Morecambe with Andre Previn? That's a lovely sketch.
I love that. Yeah, they're fantastic. But, I think I've spoken to a lot of people in, clients, but also, as guests on this podcast. I've had people that have started off in the army that have ended up, being a sort of mentor and marketing, expert, people that have set up their own, gone from being a detective in the serious crime squad to sort of moving over to sort of a social media agency. And I think, that's what makes people sort of so rounded and interested in their sort of later careers, because they have brought, all those different, you think your sort of engineering brain, and how you use that now in your sort of work with people is sort of really interesting. Do you think that sort of the way of thinking of your earlier is being applied now?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. The way that I think about psychology and coaching, counseling and psychotherapy and the work I do it's all very mechanical and logical. I need for things to be clear and logical. I don't like notions that are all a bit ethereal and like based on if I balance a crystal on the end of my nose, it will make me feel better. So I'm pretty earthy and pretty logical in the way that I structure my thinking. And also I think the Navy taught me lots of other things, not just engineering. It actually did teach to get along with people. I was in small ships, minesweepers with a very small ships company, and then later submarine service on conventional submarines. very small ship's company in confined space, submerged for 12 weeks at a time. It teaches a whole different way about being together with people and cooperating and self-discipline. So I don't regret having been in the Navy at all. I think it's helped me a lot.
I think then very good practice for lockdown and social distancing
Yes.
and everything. You'd be an expert.
Yeah.
So what would you say in your career, and what would you say has been the best piece of advice that you've received about sparking success?
I think that the best piece of advice that I ever received was just be yourself and be authentic. And my supervisor when I was in psychotherapy was the person that gave me that advice. Don't worry about the models, don't worry about the theory, just be yourself. The cure is in the relationship, is what she said. And that is central to my thinking. So it's all about respect for self, respect for others, regard for the interpersonal relationship boundary, and being willing to do your bit. So for me, those are essentials in having good, healthy relationships.
Yeah, and that comes out really clearly in your work that you're doing, and making sure that it's healthy communication of emotions, and making sure that that will support healthy relationships and healthy teams. So really important currently when we're also sort of dissipated and stressed with the current situation. So that sounds fantastic. So if people want to find out a bit more about your model or your research, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, my website, www.emotionalassertiveness.com, on the homepage are a couple of embedded short videos, only 3 minutes or so, one explaining the model very loosely, and one explaining the work that I'm doing with a colleague in Australia with children who've been caught up in the fires and the floods and who are traumatized. And so we've worked with the schools, the teachers, the parents and the children to help them to manage their emotions around that. So there's a little video called Relaxation for Kids on that homepage as well, which is again about the model. So that's the first spot. You can always email me. I'm always open to answering questions. So email me, John Parr at psdci.co.uk. That's Papa Sierra Delta Charlie India.co.uk. And I answer emails, as you just heard. So when I get an email, I open it, answer it before I close it again. I am writing a book which I'm hoping will be published around about December, and the title is going to be Foreplay, Fair Play and Foul Play. It's all about the relationship and emotions, emotional assertiveness in relationships.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And is there some information about that on your website?
The book is not spoken about on the website yet because it's still not all on the page. The objective is to have it done and ready to go publishing by December. And that's when I'll then put I've got harder information. I'm not even sure which of the publishers we're going to use at the moment.
Well, this is hot off the press then for the audience to hear first. So I'll make sure I include all the links to your website and email in the show notes as well, so people can get in touch easily with you. Oh, it's been so interesting. It's really great to hear how your model is being used, not only with teams and coaches and their clients, but also, children that have been, through quite traumatic experiences with the fires and everything. So, that's it's fantastic. And I've seen some of those videos when we met before. So it's definitely a good way to sort of explain the model and, what you're doing. So John, it's been an absolute delight to have you and hear more about your research and the model and your work.
Thanks. I'm aware that I haven't actually told you very much about the model itself. So if you want me to, I can, but I'm also good to finish when you are.
Yeah, if you want to just sort of give a summary of the emotional assertiveness model, that would be fantastic.
Basically, what I've done in the model is I've looked at why we have emotions. My conclusion is it's in order to heal us at the interrelationship level so that we are psychologically sound. Our emotions are a part of our healing process, that we have 4 basic emotions: happy, sad, scared, and angry. They're neither positive nor negative, they're just emotions, and that we need to differentiate between expressing them in a healthy way, which is the positive expression of emotion, helps us to build and stabilize relationships, or we express them negatively, which is what we often learn to do in our childhood and carry on doing for the rest of our lives, in which case those emotions become destructive and negative. And differentiating between the two and learning how to go towards respect for self and others and communicate those emotions in a healthy way. And that's a 3-day seminar in about 3 minutes.
A whistle-stop tour of emotional assertiveness model.
Okay.
That's
Is there
fantastic.
anything else you need to know? You're
That,
welcome.
That's fantastic. So, and for the listeners and audience today, join me for the next episode where I'll be joined by Nick Bendel from Australia. He is the MD of Hunter and Scribe, which helps businesses to make sales with content marketing. He's also in the midst of a 500 lunches challenge where he is meeting 500 different people for lunch. So goodness knows how much he's spending on lunches there. But he's been meeting some really interesting and different people. He's also a video presenter and gives out daily and weekly tips on marketing and sales and content strategy. And he's also author of 2 books, including Crush Them with Content. So I look forward to speaking with him. And if you're looking to promote and get more sales for your business, this is the next episode for you. So thank you so much, John, for joining me today. It's been a delight to have you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your time.
Take care. And if you've been inspired by hearing John's story and you'd like to spark your own success, you can get in touch with me at sparksucceed.co.uk to book in a free consultation to talk about your needs and how I can support you in sparking your success. So take care and join me for the next episodes. Thanks, John.
Bye. Bye-bye now.